Well, it looks like a pretty busy week weather-wise across the southern part of the country here. Let's start tonight by looking at the water vapor imagery. And I'm focusing on Texas. You can see some thunderstorms developing way down there, all pretty close to San Antonio, Texas as of Monday evening here. But most of the Lone Star State is pretty quiet. In fact, there's a front that's dropped down to the south. North of that front, it's actually fairly cool out. But that's going to change in a hurry tomorrow. If we look out west, there's a lot of unsettled weather out here across the Rocky Mountains and into the western part of the country. There's actually a couple storm systems. You can see a big spin here. And now these storm systems are going to be pushing eastward as we head into tomorrow. And then later on in the week, there's going to be a couple other systems that's going to organize out this way over the west. And that's going to kind of send several waves of at least chances for rain and storms in our direction. Now, the first comes tomorrow. Remember I was talking about how we had a little front that will stall down to the south of here. Well, tomorrow, in response to that, those storm systems beginning to move eastward, strong south winds are going to increase, and that's going to help pull that moisture in from out of the Gulf. And during the afternoon, especially tomorrow evening, we'll see that moist air really increase across a good part of Kansas, Oklahoma, and down into Texas here. At the same time, there's going to be a dry line that's going to set up here. It's warm, dry air punching in from out west, and it's the line that separates that dry air to the west from that moist air to the east. It's known as a dry line. And there's a chance late tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, an isolated thunderstorm or two may try to develop along that dry line across northwest Texas or southwest Oklahoma. Now, a lot of weather information, really not trying to produce many storms here. It's a bit of a cap in the atmosphere. And what is a cap? Warm air above the Earth's surface. And you don't have a lot of push to the atmosphere. The main storm system itself is kind of up here across Kansas and Oklahoma. And that probably will be the best chances for some severe storms, maybe even a couple tornadic activity up that way. But down here, again, all we have in place is the dry line. And with that dry line in place and increasing moisture, especially late in the afternoon and early in the evening, that might be enough to allow for one or two storms to develop. If we do get it, it's a conditional threat here. If we do get it, if storms can form and overcome that cap here, then might be able to get a severe storm or two. Our main concern, I believe, at this point in time would mostly be in the form of hail here. Now, if we kind of take a look at our checklist, when we're looking at severe weather, we have a checklist we like to look at here. I'm kind of following me here. This kind of gets a little technical. I'm trying to explain it the best I can here. So when I talk about thunderstorm energy, I'm referring to instability. Just trying to find a way for you to understand it. You know, the atmosphere has a lot of different levels of energy out there, but one thing they have to have is called potential energy. And we measure that in terms of CAP. CAP is an acronym. It stands for Convective Available Potential Energy. And as that increases, it tells us there's potential energy developing in the atmosphere. Now, if we can find a way for something to act upon that and turn that potential energy into kinetic energy, that is a thunderstorm. So we have to see if we can get that to happen here. So we got that thunderstorm energy developing, kind of moderate levels of that. Early April, late March is typically just going to kind of be moderate levels. Later on, late April and into May, you'll start getting those high levels there. And basically that just determines updraft strength. Stronger the updraft, a lot of times that has more to do with hail than anything else here. All right, so we also have a bit of a cap in the atmosphere here too. It's a fairly strong cap here. But again, with that dry line in place and increasing moisture, there still could be one or two. Oftentimes when you have a strong cap, you don't get any storms. But sometimes if you have a strong enough cap in place, it'll keep storms more discreet. Whatever can develop will basically be by itself. And a lot of times it has the potential to be stronger and become more in the way of a supercell here. We do got some wind shear in place thanks to strong upper-level jet stream winds coming in from out west here. What is wind shear? It's when the winds change directions throughout the atmosphere and increase with speed the higher up you go in the atmosphere. It causes the atmosphere to turn here a bit. If you can get a thunderstorm, oftentimes, it can cause that turn, which is horizontal, to become more vertical. And that can cause the updrafts and the thunderstorms to spin themselves, and they can get stronger that way. And as the updrafts spin and get stronger, they have more of an opportunity to produce hail. And then if you have a bit of a spin down below the clouds, from the cloud down to the Earth's surface, then you have a chance to get tornadic activity. We don't see a lot of that, but there might be some that may try to develop tomorrow night. We'll see how all that plays out. As far as the trigger goes, we don't have a lot of push in the atmosphere, but there is that dry line, so low amounts of a trigger. But all that said, a little bit could still pop as a result of that. If we check out potential thunderstorm energy, as I was saying a moment ago here, we put this into motion, and this is the first thing in the morning, still cool over a good part of the Lone Star State and the Sooner State here. Putting this in motion, though, as we get into the afternoon, especially tomorrow evening, notice that instability or that energy really is building. That's because those southerly winds are rapidly transporting in moist air from out of the Gulf here. So a warm front lifts northward, and you're going to have that warm front up here near Wichita, Kansas. That's going to be what we call a triple point. Triple point is where that warm front, dry line, low pressure area kind of intersect each other. And oftentimes that's the favorite area for stronger storms. That's up towards Wichita, Kansas here. But again, down to the south, we see that those levels of potential thunderstorm energy increasing throughout the evening and overnight tomorrow night. But keep in mind, especially as we get into tomorrow night, oftentimes the cap will increase a bit as well here. And as we head towards Wednesday, that instability kind of shifts off to the south and to the southeast here as a cold front comes crashing through. And that's going to actually kind of set the stage for some cooler weather for later on in the week. So this is going to be primarily for southern Oklahoma and north Texas here. If we do get a storm, and again, it's conditional, our main concern would be large hailstones. If a storm or two can linger into tomorrow night, it's very questionable even if we'll see that at all, then you might have a low-wind tornado threat, maybe some higher wind threats with that line of storms that tries to come into place later on tomorrow night as well here. So let's talk about this here. Here is the high-resolution, we call it the high-resolution future tracker, but this is going to be the in-house graph computer model and also the HRRR computer model. Now, I'll say that a lot of our computer models do not break storms out at all tomorrow, but a couple do, and the graph is one of those. So here we go. This is around tomorrow, even around 7. You can see the graph is trying to show a couple of storms developing along that dry line. Remember, we have moist air coming in from the south, and that dry air kind of sitting over here across the west here. Probably pretty hot out west, or pretty warm out west, and a lot cooler across the east where there's more moisture here. So you can see that storm or two does try to linger into tomorrow evening. And again, if that does happen, I'm not saying that's the exact placement that it would be, then that could be a severe storm. Here comes a more likely scenario, though. Tomorrow night, this is going to be off the HRRR computer model. There's your front. Thunderstorms developing in the middle of the night along that front, southeast Kansas, down into central Oklahoma. And then as we get into early on Wednesday morning, you can see a lot of storms developing down closer to the Metroplex and a lot of heavy rain and storms in the southeastern parts of Oklahoma. And during this hour, even though it's in the early morning hours, it's going to be a pretty strong storm system coming into place here. All severe weather hazards would be possible over here from Dallas into northeast Texas, southeast Oklahoma. Mostly looking at heavy rain and hail and strong wind gusts, but I suppose there could be enough spin to get perhaps maybe a spin up or two in some of these storms, especially if you get discrete storms like supercells over that way. Along the front itself, there could also be maybe a couple of storms there early on in southeastern parts of Texoma, but you can see that activity continues to move eastward throughout the day. Looks like a pretty good threat for a high-end threat for some severe weather, I think, well east of here with that storm system, especially across the Ohio and Mississippi River valleys on Wednesday afternoon. Now, let's change gears a bit and let's talk about later on in the week, because that is Tuesday into early on Wednesday here. So we got several storm systems that will be dropping into the western part of the country. Tomorrow is just kind of the first one here, tomorrow into Wednesday. But behind that, there's going to be another storm system that's going to drop southward here later on in the week and just spin over here across the southwestern part of the country. And it's not going to be able to move east because you got to dip in the jet stream up here across the northern part of the country. And it's kind of making a bit of a wall, so it can't really move east. In fact, if this were over in the winter time, like more like over into, let's just say, January or February, it's an ideal setup for a winter storm here. But we're getting to April, and winter weather can happen, and there's a chance. Some weather information suggests that maybe by the weekend there could be some snow up there in parts of the Texas Panhandle. It's happened before. I'm not saying it'll happen this time, but with this type of a setup here, you get strong southerly flow above the Earth's surface out ahead of it here. But at the same time, there's going to be a front that's going to drop into Texas and stall somewhere. As of right now, it looks like that stall point would be somewhere from about the northeastern parts of Texas, perhaps over close to Texarkana, kind of near or just south of Dallas, and then kind of draped kind of over into central Texas, maybe over near San Angelo, maybe down near Austin or just north of Austin, at San Antonio, somewhere in there. So over in here, this would be the east central southeastern parts of Texas, a lot of warm, moist air in place. Going to be really humid down in this area. And with this front stall, there could be several waves of severe weather, especially along and just south of this stalled frontal boundary here. Now, to the north of that boundary, we're talking about wherever this boundary would sit. Dallas, maybe over towards Abilene, maybe Wichita Falls, Oklahoma City, these areas here. There could be several waves of rain and storms developing along and north of this frontal boundary into the cooler air. And with that, you can still get severe weather, but it's called elevated severe weather, elevated thunderstorms. And those would be hail producers and heavy rain producers. And there could be some widespread heavy rain here, especially across eastern and southeastern and south central Oklahoma, down into north central Texas here, Dallas, maybe over into like Bowie, Texas, Nocona, Texas, Waurika, Oklahoma, Duncan, Oklahoma, maybe south down towards Stephenville, or maybe towards Weatherford, Mineral Wells, and those areas, maybe even back up into parts of northwestern Texas. This is good news, because remember, this area, this part of the world is prone to drought, so if we do get this type of a setup here, it'll be much needed rainfall, and it will help us as we get into the spring and summer season. Whatever we can get goes a long way here, right, folks? So again, the red area, possible several waves of severe weather. We're talking about from Wednesday into Thursday, Friday, Saturday, maybe even Sunday over this way, because the weather pattern is just not going to move a whole lot here. Darker green, several round of storms here with heavy downpours, and we could pick up several inches of rain. With that said, there could be some severe weather here too, especially if the front stalls a little bit further to the north here. But as of right now, it looks like it will be mostly just some heavy rain and storms, and mostly be hail producers. But it's a little early to make that call. The lighter green here, several rounds of rain and storms here, and some heavy rain also would be a possibility with that. Now, as far as rainfall amounts go across Texas and Oklahoma, this is going to be taken from Tuesday all the way into Saturday and early on Sunday. You can see some heavy rainfall amounts, especially for us focused over here close to Sherman, Denison, over towards Broken Bow, Oklahoma here, and then down towards Tyler, Texas. Some of these areas over here, 3-4 plus inches of rain. And then you get back to the west. Look at that. Wichita Falls up over 2 inches. Some parts of northwest Texas, southwest Oklahoma, over 2 inches of rainfall here. That would certainly be some welcome news. Lighter amounts down here. It's because to the south, over here across South Texas here, your storms would be more isolated down that way away from the frontal system here. So you don't get the waves of heavy rain in those areas that you would get to the north. But that also might favor more severe weather in some of those areas. Again, it's early to be making a call. I'm just telling you about what I'm seeing right now. Let's get through Tuesday's threat for some severe weather first, which is isolated here. Wednesday morning's threat for severe weather across eastern Texas, north central Texas, southeast Oklahoma. And then we'll focus on the heavier rainfall threats later on in the week. And in addition to that, again, it's going to be pretty chilly too across a good part of north Texas and southern Oklahoma. It's not going to feel like the first weekend in April. But, you know, sometimes you do get cool weather into April. And that's not a cruel April Fool's joke. It's just how it is around here. All right, well, thanks for hearing me ramble on about weather here this afternoon, this evening here. I hope everybody has a great night. We'll have updates on these weather scenarios coming up throughout the week.